I'm John Allan, I'm the Cathedral's archaeologist. I'm leading a team of people who are investigating the floors of the choir and presbytery of the cathedral. We're standing close to the high altar here in one of the most magnificent settings in the West Country, surrounded by fantastic medieval glass and stonework and woodwork, and it all looks absolutely magnificent. But there are problems because inevitably it is showing some signs of wear, and precious things here, including the magnificent floor behind us here, are actually showing signs of decay. Actually, there are problems which are very expensive to address, and that's where this investigation phase, which has been funded by the lottery, comes in. We need archaeologists to be working, but lots of other people as well, contractors looking at the problems of heating and data systems and lighting. Moreover, this is not just a monument, it's a working building, and those who work here in the winter find it is jolly cold because there isn't an effective heating system here in the choir. And as new demands arise in the cathedral for better lighting, sound systems and so on, we need to improve the way in which the sound and the lighting here is presented. Behind us here is a very elaborate piece of work, which is a Victorian rendition of the great medieval pavements at places like Canterbury and Westminster Abbey.
Mark Steinmetzer, Director of Exeter Archaeology. So I oversee the works, as well as being the project leader. I also do some of the excavation work, some of the recording, the photography. So it's quite exciting really to be the first person in probably 100 years to see what is below the floor of this impressive building. We're also trying to understand more about the history and development of the cathedral. We know obviously that there is an early Norman predecessor, and we are hoping to expose this as part of this work.
This floor is a wonderful thing. It's made with a mix of different materials which give it this lovely rich effect. This is the one area of medieval floor tiles which we know about, which we think is still in situ, and you can see they're diagonally laid tiles, and most, possibly all of them, are plain. No one's really ever studied these properly, so we must have a good look at them now. We suspect they may actually be imported tiles from the Low Countries. And some are very special. These great foils here, polyfoils, are ones which have at their centre great pieces of a type of granite called Luxullianite, and it comes from the quarries at Luxullian, which were famous for these pinky rose-coloured granites. And they're absolutely lovely, aren't they? Quite different from the normal browns and greys of granite. This veined greenstone, according to the accounts of the time, came from Anglesey. Over in the borders here, our local purple volcanic stone, Pokham stone, just here with its white calcite veins, and that comes from quarries just on the fringe of Exeter in St Thomas. To get a sense of how varied and subtle it is, as we move over, rather less elaborate on the borders here, a mix of encaustic tiles by Godwin, mixed in with a type of Devonshire marble, as they were called, a form of limestone really, which could be quarried in Torquay, and this is Petitor, in the sort of Babbacombe area of Torquay, where these beautiful marbles, limestones with lots of interesting fossils in them, were cut and polished. And the whole effect, as we look right across the floor, is wonderfully rich and varied, and fabulous that it's survived so well. So you can imagine we're keen to care for this and make sure that we can resolve the problems of damp, which will cause some decay if we don't address them. As we come down into the choir proper, we come onto a floor which was laid in 1963 when they lifted Scott's elaborate floor and put in something much plainer. This too is showing signs of concerning decay. You can see here that shouldn't be happening. We don't understand why it's decaying. And this is a possible site where it might be feasible to put in some underfloor heating. Well, we've moved into the aisle and we're looking here to see whether it would be feasible to put new piping and sound systems in. We've turned up quite a good number of these medieval floor tiles, which date from about 1300. We won't actually be disturbing the burial, but we will be emptying the fill and seeing how deep the burials are. So fresh information, and the graves in fact don't correspond at all with the slabs which you now see. Things have been shuffled around since the days when these burials were interred. So we will be learning about interments which we haven't any previous knowledge of. We've come round behind the high altar and we're standing in the aisle, the retro choir, which leads into the Lady Chapel. And the reason the slabs below us here have been lifted is that this is the place perhaps with the worst heating in the whole cathedral. It's absolutely freezing here in winter, and they have an early morning service, and in winter it is jolly chilly. And the excavation here is looking at the ways in which this might be achieved. We've dug in the retrochoir here, but we've also dug a little bit within the Lady Chapel, and the Lady Chapel too has got one of these wonderful Scott floors. Once this is completed within the next month or so, we will be thinking and designing with our fresh information, and then the main project actually starts, the delivery stage as it's called, and we will be coming back to the lottery and saying, will you support us to make these improvements to the cathedral? And when we do so, we shall have a jolly good idea of exactly what we're tackling.